available to you. I will say this event is sold out, and we did have some folks who did not RSVP who came in, so they might be able to have standing room only. I'll try to make it work. A couple of seats up here, but if anyone's like front row seats, you're really excited. I feel like they're always the last seats. Okay, that's fine. I got a couple of windows, otherwise, help hold up the back wall. So I'm excited to see so many people who want to come out and talk tonight about this very important topic, very timely topic. It's been in the news a lot. My name is Melanie Tharp. I'm the Director of Programs and Advocacy here at the Center for Civic Innovation. Raise your hand if you've been to the center before. Alright, we got some new faces. Welcome to the people. So we were founded 3 years ago, wanting to be a home for people who are trying to make our city better. So people who want to get out, get engaged and involved, give them a place to talk about stuff like this, and also to come forward, take some action. And this year we have joined up with a couple of other organizations, including Pro Georgia, who does a lot around voter registration stuff, and Partnership for Southern Equity, to form something called Our Future Atlanta. So if you're wondering about this logo, that's what it's for. Really looking at who knew that this year is an election year in the city of Atlanta. A lot of people. Good, yay! So most years, the city of Atlanta, we have 20% voter turnout when it comes to picking our mayors, city council, and school board. I think the last time there was an open election here in Atlanta, we got 30%, which is 10 percentage points larger than cities nationwide, so that's pretty exciting. But it's still pretty bad. So we think we can do better. So there's a coalition of organizations that have come together to kind of talk about what's important this year for this election, and who's running, and why should you get involved, why should you want to vote, what types of stuff should you be asking candidates. So that's kind of what brings us here tonight. We did a bunch of surveys, so we have 2,000 surveys that went out, door to door, people gathered in small groups, we did phone surveys. And one of the number one things people talked about when we asked them, what's a big issue for you this year, this election year? The number one was education, and then right behind that was gentrification. So it's definitely something, driven around Atlanta, you can see, the mayor likes to say that the city bird of Atlanta is the crane, which is a really crappy joke, but you see them everywhere through the street. There's tons of new stuff happening, and that worries people. That means your neighborhood is going to change. You might have to leave your neighborhood, it might get pricey, and that's happening across the city. So it's something we want to talk about today. So these are some of the other events we have coming up. If you enjoyed this one tonight and want to kind of see some of the other topics that are coming up in this election. This one tonight, actually the Our Future Atlanta group, next Monday will actually be launching kind of a platform for candidates, so that's something if you're interested in, it'll be at the gathering spot. And then we have a few more of these panels that are here, including one about safer communities, so people are also really concerned about community safety, police reform, that kind of stuff, so we'll be discussing that. Also talking about the sustainability movement, some of those words. Everybody's talking about sustainability, who's actually being, and who's actually benefiting from it, what's doing for our city. And then we're going to have one around local government accountability because, we elect these folks. What's supposed to happen next after that? So, gentrification. I had my interns pull some meetings, so thanks to interns. The word on the street is it's everywhere, so wherever you look, that's what we're talking about. There's a new coffee shop, fancy cupcake store going in. For a lot of people, maybe that's exciting, but for a lot of other people, that might be kind of scary because that's not a place you want to shop, but they're placing something that you really like shopping at. And these are actually from around the city. So this one popped up recently down in Peoplestown. I don't know who is doing this sign, but I have to say it's pretty funny. It's probably not funny for the city, I'm sure they did not appreciate it, but I liked it. This other one. Yeah, pardon? Yes, sorry, not good. Luckily, I'm not on speakers, right? And this other one actually is from, this one over here is from the Beltline East Side Trail, so it popped up last year as new construction was happening. Someone put that out as a piece of artwork, and I think it's pretty telling.
That's what the
oh, nice. I was wondering who I could attribute it to. So, yeah, so that one I saw on my walk down the trail. This is a map that came out earlier this year. Governing Magazine did some data analysis across the country and looking at gentrification. And it was some pretty scary stuff. So this is from 2000 up until today. And they looked at which neighborhood tracts from the census and then doing a new survey were actually changing, particularly looking at lower income communities. As you can see, all this dark blue, these are places where you're seeing housing prices go way up, and the education level of people moving into the neighborhoods going way up, and lots of people moving out. Then you have these areas up here, which they say are not eligible because they assume everybody who lives there, already has a higher degree, has a higher, is paying a higher price for their house, but these areas are all saying massive change. And that's a lot. That's a lot of our city. It's a lot of really centrally located stuff. So it's something, to talk about, be a little concerned about. So tonight, we have some experts who are here to talk, and our friend Thomas Wheatley, formerly of Creative Loafing and now at Immergluck Magazine, has agreed to join us as our moderator. So I will be turning it over to him and to our panelists who will introduce themselves.
Everyone hear me? Upper, louder? Yeah. Speaking louder? Like that? Okay, cool. Alright, I'm yelling most of the night. My name is Thomas Wheatley. I'm the articles editor at Atlanta Magazine, and I am thrilled to be back with CCI. CCI does a lot of great work, and I've done a lot of things with them in the past, and I'm thrilled to see the number of people that have come out here. It goes to show that this is not something that we just kind of talk about on Facebook or on Twitter or just amongst friends, but that we actually care about. So thank you for taking the time to come out here tonight. I'm happy to let the panelists introduce themselves, or if you would like me to, I have little bios that which is great opportunity.
Yeah, we want to introduce ourselves. We'll go ahead and take that. So since I have the mic, I'm going to start first, and I'm not actually going to start with an introduction. I want to say some of my colleagues are here, and I expect them to pull my coat if I don't say the right thing. So there's Sharice, and there's Columbus, and there's Allison, and there are probably other people here that I didn't see right away. So my name is Kate Little. I'm with Georgia Advancing Communities Together, Georgia Act, and we're a statewide membership association of nonprofits engaged in housing and community development. We're based in Atlanta.
I'm Shay Watkins, President and CEO of the Center for Working Families. Traditionally, we've been focused in NPUV around Turner Field, but we've recently merged with New Hope Enterprises, and now we are active on the west side and expanding our footprint to serve communities south of I-20. We focus mainly on job readiness and job placement for underserved communities, but as you can understand, anything that involves community around housing and public safety and education impacts how people get jobs and where they get jobs. So that's why we're focused on this issue.
Hi, I'm Darin Gibbons. I'm co-founder of a group called ThreadATL, which advocates for principles of good urbanism in the built environment. We're a very new, young group, still finding our footing after about a year. And definitely one of the principles of good urbanism is making sure that everybody, a great diversity of people, can be involved in well-built cities. And if they're getting pushed out of the city, then they're not involved. So that concerns us very much.
Thanks. I'm Dan Immergluck, and I'm a professor at the Urban Studies Institute at Georgia State. Just recently left Georgia Tech after about a dozen years in the planning program, and and I've done a good deal of work on housing issues in Atlanta.
Hi, I'm LeJuano Varnell. I'm treasurer of Historic District Development Corporation, HDDC. We are a 37-year-old CDC affordable housing developer based in the Martin Luther King Historic District. The organization is responsible for redeveloping over 100 single-family homes in the historic district, and some developments you may be very familiar with, Studioplex, Dynamic Bundles Laws, and we continue to this day to keep providing affordability in, as you can imagine, a very rapidly changing neighborhood.
And what Dan didn't say was that he's also he's a journalist's dream in terms of information about housing policy, and especially about Beltline. If you've in the past, probably like what year, heard that 95% of all new housing, or all new multi-family units built in Atlanta were marketed as luxury housing. That was Dan that kind of pulled that data. And I believe you're just going to kind of briefly give us a lay of the land.
Yeah, Thomas asked me to pull some data, give a little bit of a capstone on where we're at, but I'm sure, I know there are lots of folks in this room. I see lots of folks, I see some former students who know this stuff already, so I'll apologize if it's rehash. I want to start by saying, let's keep in mind some kind of current thinking of people who do housing policy and community development, which is housing's not just bricks and mortar, a place for people to live. Well, that's a huge deal all by itself. It's a platform for people's lives. It's where people spring from, where they get their opportunity from, is really focused on, is based on where they live. And over the last 10 years especially, we have all kinds of data that back that up. That say the previous president was fond of saying the zip code determines your future. It's more than that. It's smaller than that. It's your block and it's your neighborhood, but it's also your house. And then housing affordability is the language I've usually used, but what we've really learned in the last few years in light of the foreclosure crisis and now an eviction crisis is housing stability. For kids, for families, but for neighborhoods and for investors even, too much housing instability is bad for everyone. Except for a few who kind of milk that and take opportunity out of that. But for most folks, too much turnover, people being evicted, people being foreclosed on, people paying 50% of their income in rent and really having to move time and time again, that's a huge problem. Just some basic data, rental cost burdens in the city of Atlanta. If you talk about people who are generally classified as low income, but not extremely low income, people who make between $20,000 and $35,000 a year, that's between 30 and 50% of the area median income. Those folks are stressed. 82% of them pay over 30% of their income for rent. That's what we call generally rent burden. And 26% of them are severely rent burdened, so they're paying over 50% of their income for rent. But when you go down to folks making less than $20,000 a year, this is where the burdens are extreme. Now, not that many, much higher percentage of people in this income group pay more than 30%. It's about 85% instead of 82%. Because 15% of them or so are getting subsidy. Okay? And so out of all the people who are really eligible for things like housing vouchers, only about 15%, maybe 20% are getting it. But in Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, it's only about 15%. And 71% of those folks making under $20,000 a year are paying over half their income in rent. And that's, we can talk about young folks making, and even middle-income folks, kind of workforce housing for people making $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year. Yes, the rent's too damn high. It's too damn high for most people. But in Atlanta, unlike perhaps New York or San Francisco, if you're over 80% area median income, at least you're not spending half your income for rent, usually. It's the people below 80% and especially below 50% that are really severely rent burdened. Now, one of the big contributors of this is what I call the loss of low-cost units. Units, apartments, houses that rent for under $750 a month gross, so that includes utilities. So that might be marketed as a unit that's $550 a month or $500 a month. But gross rent is really the way to think about it. And we're losing about 1,000 of those units in the city itself every year, maybe more than that in the last couple of years. So when we talked about $40 million for the new affordable housing bond, and I kind of say, well, to really provide housing for those who need it, you're talking about $50,000 a unit. That's 800 units. Yet we're losing 1,000 a year just out of natural, or natural is the wrong word, market forces, right? We're losing huge amounts of what I will call naturally occurring affordable housing, as well as subsidized housing. Some of that is being pulled down out of the market by being abandoned. You can drive through lots of neighborhoods still and see lots of vacancy. Some units that have been vacant since 2008, and they're not livable. If they've been vacant for that long, they most likely can only be knocked down because they just deteriorate too much. But on the upside, the topic of today, gentrification, upgrading, we're losing a lot of units also to prices being pulled up, rents being pulled up, properties being purchased and rehabbed in ways that are turning them into luxury properties. Also properties that are being purchased and a paint job makes their rent go up $400 a month, right? So those things are clearly still happening. I'll close by just pointing to this chart, which just tracks rents. These are asking rents over basically the last 4 years. And I've selected out a kind of spectrum of neighborhoods. The darkest red are the hottest neighborhoods in terms of rent increases, and the lighter colors are still increases, but not as high. And this is a pretty good sample of Atlanta neighborhoods. You have neighborhoods like Home Park and Reynoldstown, where you're seeing over 10% a year in increases in rent. You're seeing, but many neighborhoods in the kind of 20 to 30%, which is more like 7 or 8% a year. This is an average. So that means there are apartments that are, if they're 7% average, that means there are apartments that are increasing at 10 or 15%. And if the average is 12%, like it is in Home Park, or 11%, that means there are units that are increasing much more. But even in what economists would call weaker market neighborhoods, we're still seeing Grove Park 11%. I would expect normally to see rents kind of staying the same or even going down in Grove Park normally. And I've got the little red line on the right that is really the right reference point. What have people's incomes done over this period of time? And they've only gone up on average, or median, 5% over that 4-year period. So even in a fairly weak market neighborhood like Oakland City, rents have gone up at the rate of incomes going up. Really, you can't find a neighborhood in the city where rents are going down or completely flat. There might be one or two. But generally, we're seeing rents going up either a lot or a crazy amount. And I'll close it at that.
He's awesome, isn't he? Yeah. He's insanely incredible. In all of your studies, Dan, that you've done where you looked at housing markets, are we looking at something that is to be expected from bouncing back from a very severe recession, or is this kind of unprecedented? Is it new territory?
Well, might be expected from this recession because of the foreclosure crisis. Nowhere since the 1930s did we have so many people rapidly pushed out of homeownership into the rental market. And at the same time, mortgage standards ratcheted up so that new folks couldn't get into the mortgage market. So where do they go? Both the people forced out and the people not being able to enter are pushed into the rental market. So what we have is a lot of folks who might be homeowners eventually normally are being stalled into the rental market. And then we had a pent-up demand. We had very little new households. A lot of folks in this room are of the age where they may be staying with their parents when they prefer not to. And that, we are at record levels of that. And it's just starting to spill out into the rental market. So we had all this pent-up demand for people wanting to rent. And now that people are starting to get jobs more, they're flooding into the rental market. So we just have this kind of insatiable demand in the rental market. And that's what's doing this. I would say gentrification is definitely happening, but some of this is not gentrification. Some of this, meaning it's not what sociologists often call gentrification, which is high-income people coming into neighborhoods. Some of it is young people without a lot of money coming into the rental market. A colleague in Canada calls it youthification, right? There's a lot of young folks who are renting and probably paying 50% of their income for the rent to get a $1,600 a month apartment near the Beltline. And that's also pushing up rent. So you have gentrification, but you also have a lot of folks willing to spend way too much of their income on rental housing in hot markets.
And when does that youth-ification, when does it hit home for them that I can't keep spending 50% of my income? If they, I mean...
When they get laid off. I hate to say it that way, but I mean, the big threat to the kind of mainstream apartment market in this town and many towns is a major recession where lots of folks paying too much on the rent. Kind of redo the subprime crisis in the rental market, just stop paying the rent because they've signed leases that are too expensive. And, I hate to say this, a lot of parents have signed on leases to guarantee the rents. And will they really pay the rents when their kid is laid off? Probably not.
Well, you just scared the hell out of me. LeJuano, and can everybody hear me? I just want to be sure, okay. The HTDC was founded in 1980, correct? I mean, it was an all-star organization, and it is an all, not saying it was, I'm sorry. But I mean, when it was founded, yeah. Scott King was a co-founder, Christine King Ferris, if I'm correct, and it was started to really preserve the MLK National Historic District, to take care of kind of the heart of Old Fourth Ward. Right? And as years passed, its mission somewhat expanded to focus on historic preservation, non-displacement, sustainability in the truest sense of the word, not just green, but also people. Sure. I think a lot about how it must be difficult now to, if you want to build affordable housing in Buckhead, it's like that train's left the station. You're not going to be able to do that. Maybe you can, and I'm sure the panel could maybe tell us about some ideas, but how has what's happened, because Old Fourth Ward is at the top of that list,
right?
How has that affected what y'all are trying to do in Old Fourth Ward? Has that made it impossible for y'all to work?
So the privilege of being with the HTDC 37 years later is that we have been legacy accumulators of land in the Old Fourth Ward. So we still sit on a portfolio of land that whose purposeful intent, the reason why we come from the organization every day is to make sure that we can provide a diversity of housing options for anyone that wants to stay in the Old Fourth Ward or in the historic district or move into the historic district. We're in the process right now of taking a postage stamp sized lot of just over a quarter of an acre and trying to create some density of home ownership in 26 units. And my cost basis on the land is so low that I'm going to retain just about 18% of the sellable square footage as my payout for a contribution of the land to provide affordable housing on the Beltline that will sit in the same building as somebody's going to spend more than $300 a square foot for a condo. And our thought is that we believe in egalitarian opportunity for high quality housing for anyone who wants it. That's our model. HTDC has always been a very market-based affordable housing developer. You can imagine in 1980 what the historic district looked like. It's wildly depressed home and asset values. And it barriers to entry to building community for those who wanted to live there, right? And we found the right capital partners and the right team to take some old historic structures and turn them into homes for those who want to build community in that neighborhood. And we continue to think that way today, but yes, obviously it's difficult to find land as inexpensively as we had 30 years ago. For example, the postage stamp lot that I'm describing right now, if you extrapolate it out, it's going to come to about $4 million an acre is where land prices are off the Beltline in that neighborhood.
So are people beating your door down now, saying they want to partner with you, or are they saying, no, we are getting enough demand with luxury housing?
So, are they asking to acquire the land? Yes. Would they like to co-develop on terms that are fair to both parties? Sometimes. It's a math problem. And we try and wake up in the morning and solve our math problems and build affordable housing as best we can.
Darin, how is this affecting neighborhoods? How is this affecting really what makes Atlanta a special place?
So how is so I would say the ill effects of gentrification, the displacement, the housing insecurity, I mean, it puts people in a situation where they are not necessarily going to be falling in love with their neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So these are not, if you're in a situation where you are experiencing housing insecurity, like Dan was saying earlier, not necessarily displaced, but maybe you're spending a huge chunk of your income on housing, and you don't know if you're going to be able to keep that housing a year from now. You're not somebody who's necessarily going to be really putting a lot of effort into your neighborhood and having that sort of ownership of your neighborhood, because you might not know if you're going to stay in your neighborhood, right? And that kind of ownership of people's neighborhoods and that kind of love for where you live is a big part of what can make places great. That's one of the basic, building blocks of placemaking. You have to care about the place. And if people are not sure if they're going to stay in the place, how are they going to care about the place? And so I think that it has the potential to have a big effect on the way people feel about their areas, their neighborhoods, and the city at large.
So you were looking it almost looked like you had fear in your eyes when you were looking at this chart. And I don't know if you're just focusing on it very intently, or if you were thinking about how this is affecting your mission.
Well, I am interested in the subject, but I think on a broader basis, what we struggle with when serving our participants is the connection between housing costs, transportation costs, wages, and access to jobs. So if you think about where most of the jobs have been historically, they're in the north. So housing costs are high there too. So you can't move to close to where your job is if you have low skills or low literacy or a criminal background. Those jobs up there aren't necessarily going to be open. So then you think through the transportation. So how do I get there from where I currently live, which currently is affordable? Well, there aren't that many options there either because we all know about our transportation system. So then you have to think through how much does this person have to make to cover their current housing costs, transportation costs, and then make sure they have something left over. Typically, we have to bring in government resources. So we have to make sure that they have access to all of the benefits that they can get from the government. So food stamps, child care subsidies, housing subsidies. The problem is, at some point, you want people to make more money, but there's a cutoff in terms of when you can make more money and you start to lose your subsidies. So yes, people can have subsidies to live in some of these areas, but at some point you want them to make more money so that they can do more and have more disposable income. But that's the balance that people have to make in their minds. So if you're all of a sudden displaced from one of these areas and you have to go further south where your job might still be north or it might be east or west, those are the considerations that we have to have, and it completely limits people's ability to work where they want to work or where they need to work to get the best jobs. And then, of course, if you think about wages in Metro Atlanta, you know, the current federal minimum wage is $7.25, but Georgia's official minimum wage is $5.15. So there are people that can pay the Georgia minimum wage. And if you think about what a livable wage is for people in Metro Atlanta, the Atlanta Regional Commission says an adult with 2 children, that's $26.55 an hour, which is about $55,000 a year. For you to make a livable wage, not be on subsidies, and have some disposable income. So how am I supposed to get people from that $10, $12, $15 an hour job without any bumps along the road to that livable wage of $26.55 when they can't save money, they're moving around, they're housing unstable, and typically displaced. One of the places where you see this, not the gentrification part, but the housing instability part, is in Thomasville Heights, because the school over there has about 30 to 40% turnover in the school. But that's because the apartment building that's right next to the school is housing unstable. So there's a lot of evictions, a lot of turnover. So think about how that impacts that child going forward, and the cycle continues. So if we don't figure this out on a broad perspective, the next generation of people will also be impacted, and we'll have to figure it out for them as well. So that's why you saw that look on my face.
I mean, it sounds like, I mean, these are problems that can be solved. I mean, and then we've known about these problems, and we have the resources to do something about these problems. So, I mean, what can we do?
Okay, well, first of all, I don't know that we have the resources to solve these problems. I just want to just give another perspective or add an additional perspective to gentrification. I mean, we've talked about higher income people moving into a neighborhood. We've also, Dan has also talked about millennials and others, Generation X and whatever comes after millennials, moving into neighborhoods. And some of these neighborhoods experiencing gentrification, the other thing that means is that they're increasing the density. I mean, Atlanta neighborhoods, probably south of I-20, have mostly have single-family housing and smaller multifamily, except for some of the larger public housing units. And so there is actually room for additional population. And in some of these neighborhoods, we would call them underserved or marginalized or just poor neighborhoods. And so when you have an increase in population, that also brings some amenities that the existing residents would like to see. They would like grocery stores in their neighborhoods. They would like restaurants in their neighborhoods. They would like drugstores in their neighborhood, something besides Dollar General and Family Dollar. So so as we talk about gentrification, we need to think about how do we preserve or how do we retain the existing residents so that they benefit from the changes taking place in the neighborhood. And so that's where some of the resources come in, and that's what you just mentioned and also Che mentioned. So we know that the federal government is actually either has reduced for the past probably 5 years, if not longer, monies available for various federal housing programs that can help in terms of infrastructure, can help in terms of subsidizing rents, can also provide assistance in development of housing and also preservation of housing. Those resources are dwindling. Even Section 8 housing choice vouchers. I mean, there's a question as to generally Congress used to try to make sure, maybe they're not going to expand the program, but they want to make sure those persons benefiting from that rental assistance can at least maintain that assistance over a 5, 10, 15-year period. That is definitely in doubt at this point in time. So we need to start thinking not just about what the city of Atlanta can do or what Fulton County can do, but also we need to look at federal policy, federal budgets, and tax policy, and what impact those things have on what's going on in your block, in your house, in your census tract, in your neighborhood. So going back to the resources and to maybe offer some solutions at the local level, some of you may have attended in the past the Regional Housing Forum that meets quarterly in Atlanta. The Regional Housing Forum has it's an ad hoc group, so it ebbs and flows in terms of who attends, but a group has arisen out of there called City for All that is looking at a campaign to raise $250 million for affordable housing development. And part of that effort also includes a livable, what's it called? Livable Transit Fund. So the Partnership for Southern Equity has suggested that a portion of the T-SPLOST money, the referendum approved for MARTA, that possibly 1-2% of that money could be used for housing, transit-oriented development, so that we could provide more funds as a way to provide more funds for development of housing. So I think we need to start talking about solutions. And just one other thing, Shay mentioned the West End, and so there's been development over there, of course, because of that atrocious Mercedes-Benz stadium that just hovers over the neighborhood. I mean, it's just so ugly. But at any rate, money has been put into that neighborhood, and there's been a concern about rising property taxes for the homeowners. And so one of the things the money interests over there have done is to say that they will capitalize a fund to pay for increases in the property tax basis. Well, based on the information Dan just gave us, we can't afford to do this on a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis. We need to look systematically at what is a realistic solution for property tax payments, and not just say we're going to raise funds for one neighborhood. That does nothing for Turner Field. So that's
the beauty of what I do now and where I do it is we have an opportunity to do something different with all the development that's now coming around 20 and south of I-20, whether it's West Side's kind of close to 20, whether it's Turner Field, the Aerotropolis work, there's a lot of conversation about developing a city basically around the airport and expanding all of that development out almost up to this area. And that's because if you want a City of Atlanta address, there's nowhere, where else are you going to go at this point? So they're done with Midtown, done with Buckhead, they've done all they can there. So now really all you got left is South. So we can either force the issue and say, okay, look, we've done it that way already before, the Midtown Buckhead way. Now we have to do it a different way, especially given the fact that a lot of underserved communities live south of I-20. So let's not do to them that are already in these areas what's been done before. There's jobs coming, there's good jobs coming. Those people need to have access to those jobs. You know, you talk about the displacement fund around that is focused on property taxes, but we just heard a whole story about rents. And what do you do with that? How do you address that? So it's now, I think, that we have to have this conversation and have it aggressively. Otherwise, the same exact thing is going to happen south of I-20, and all the people that I serve will then be out of nowhere.
Well, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember early on when I just started working at Creative Work, people who have been to the CCI before, you might have heard me tell the story. I really apologize. I hate to be that guy. But I went to a regional housing forum once in like 2008 or 2007, and it was a group of the metro region's nonprofit developers and academics, and they were talking a lot about, you know, what do we do about gentrification? What do we do even more specifically about displacement? And one person answered, you know, we could solve this, I'm paraphrasing, I'm kind of simplifying, we could solve this with an inclusionary zoning policy, or inclusionary housing policy, where you require developers to include a certain percentage of the units they build in the family to be considered affordable, whatever definition that might be. And everybody laughed. Like it was the best joke of the forum. And a few years back, there was actually some conversation about inclusionary housing policy. And we got a little bit there, but then it stopped. And I know that there were some measures taken about receiving public benefits for your development. You know, you have to set aside a certain percentage, but we haven't seen anything citywide. Do you think we're ever going to get to that type of solution, or is that going to be kind of the forbidden zone? We don't go there.
Well, I don't think it's a question of we don't go there. Actually, we have continued to talk about that for years and years and years, even before.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but to clarify, I'm speaking politically.
Right, and I actually, yes. So I'll get to the point. So again, I mentioned federal policy, the need for some advocacy there, and then I talked about City for All and some advocacy there. There also needs to be some advocacy at the state level. I mean, one of the issues with inclusionary zoning, and we understand, I mean, the city law department goes back and forth about this. I remember being in a meeting when Shirley Franklin was in office with their some of the staff from the housing department, and they basically said the law department would not sign off on it, that they felt that it was in violation of some state law. And so we've been pushing for to get the law department or get the city the powers that be to say, we're going to pass this and we'll just wait to be sued and see what happens. As I understand it, the city council was earlier this year looking at an inclusionary zoning policy just for the Beltline, for the Beltline overlay district. But they were going to do that on a demonstration or a pilot basis to see if that would fly. And so that would be like a test case, and then depending upon what happened there, it could be extended citywide. I do want to say, too, that last year in the spring, I believe it was in May, so differentiating inclusionary zoning from inclusionary housing, the city did pass an ordinance that requires developers with any kind of housing subsidy, well, I shouldn't say housing subsidy, with any kind of government subsidy that is bond funds through, say, Fulton County Development Authority, that they have to set aside a certain percentage of their units as affordable. So that was one thing that did happen, but that's just in that special circumstance, and it doesn't really address conventionally financed residential housing.
Dan, I wanted to ask you about this because I've heard people talk about, well, what we're seeing here is an issue of supply and demand. We just don't have enough supply to meet the demand, so we just simply need to build more. What do you say to that? I mean, LeJuano, you're laughing.
The answer is no. No, I am. There's been a lot of controversy around that question all over the country, particularly in San Francisco, California. But housing markets are not like widgets. It's not a simple Econ 101 supply and demand graph. There are supply effects, so you can increase density, increase housing, and if you have lots of apartments that are one bedrooms renting for $1,700 a month, it might make by generating a lot more of those apartments, you might see rents go down to $1,650 a month. And that's happening a little bit. There's some evidence that rents have flattened out for luxury a little bit because of all the building. That's not affordable housing. That might be making housing more affordable, but it's what no one in the housing affordability business has ever called affordable housing. It's still unaffordable. Whether you lower prices by 5 or 10% might help some middle or upper income folks, but there's another problem, which is there's a supply effect, which may lower rents a little bit. But there's also what economists call an amenity effect, and that's what's happened around the Beltline and in Midtown. When I came here 12 years ago, walking up Peachtree, Midtown had just kind of started turning around, but it was pretty boring. It might still be boring to some people, but it's definitely a lot livelier than it was 12 years ago. And that's why people want to live there. By creating more density, you create more retail, you create more happenings, and what does that do? It drives the demand for the neighborhood. The other thing that you have is just the simple economics short term of if a developer can put twice as many units on site, he can generate more income per square foot of land. That will allow him to pay more for the land, which, if I'm an affordable housing developer, I can't compete with that. Land prices are probably too high to begin with. So there is a supply effect, but there's an amenities effect and a density effect that work the other way. In hot neighborhoods, those effects drown out the supply effect. In weaker neighborhoods or in suburbs, if you've got large lot zoning that says you need 2 acres to provide housing, well, yeah, density is going to lower values. But in hot market neighborhoods and cities, density is not by itself the answer unless you do inclusionary zoning, right? Now, if you can use the density and allow people to build higher in exchange for affordability, that's a different story. But density at market rate is not going to solve the problem.
A lot of the talk has been about, it's really, renters are really bearing a lot of burden here. Are there any specific solutions that we could offer them now instead of waiting for inclusionary zoning to pass, instead of waiting for some other solution to make itself available? People who are saying, I can't afford, my rent just went up $600. I can't afford this rent, and I don't want to do that.
One is to offer basically, instead of, part of it is, we can add new affordable housing. But we actually, there's about 3 million subsidized rental units in the country, and there are at least 6 million what are called naturally occurring affordable units that are unsubsidized, but they're cheap. Why? Because they're old buildings. And we have a lot of that in Atlanta too. Except a lot of it is really in bad shape. So if we could offer owners of those buildings low interest loans, ideally also lower property taxes, but that's a bigger nut to crack because of state law. But if we could offer them low interest loans, maybe even some small grants to go with the low interest loans, and they in exchange for that say, we'll keep these units affordable for 20 or 30 years or maybe more. That's a way we could impact that. Well, we could actually do this for single family stock too, for single family homes that are rentals. But in many neighborhoods, especially the kinds of neighborhoods that Kate was talking about, we're talking about 75 to 80% rentership rates, 15, 20% home ownership. We need to address the rental housing. We need to do it soon. And dealing with this huge unsubsidized stock and finding ways, I really do think we need to figure out a way to provide property tax relief for landlords who commit to lowering rents and to annual inspections. Tennessee has a program where if you set aside a certain number of units in a multifamily building, it's not a subsidized building otherwise necessarily, you can get a significant reduction in your property taxes. Unfortunately, they haven't monitored it very well, but there's no reason it couldn't be monitored.
Are there horror stories from Tennessee?
There is.
Can you tell me one?
There's a group called, people may know this company better than I do, Global Ministries. Yes. Oh, Willoughby's here. And they are based in Memphis. So they own a ton of stock in Memphis. And pretty much every affordable housing development in the city used this subsidy, which was appropriate, but they were probably the biggest consumers. So that program has gotten tarred, I think, by Global Ministries, which is slumlord, right? And they, oh, do they? That sounds right. That sounds right. Yeah, so they own a few projects. Willoughby knows more about this than I do, but they own a few projects in Atlanta. But Memphis, when they imploded, Memphis just got rocked because all these properties were now in receivership and horror stories. But folks who have worked with that program say it could easily work. It works better in Nashville, for example. It works better in Chattanooga. It depends on how it's been monitored. But you've got one of the problems, and I don't want to disparage taxing authorities, but taxing authorities are not housing agencies. So if you just put it in a taxing authority, you don't necessarily have the expertise on the housing side, and you need to have that expertise. One final thing I say, that this is a far-out idea, and I need to offer those once in a while, but I've been pushing a way, if you could get it financed, and Kate's exactly right, money is a big part of the problem. There are states and localities that have local housing voucher programs. And theoretically, I'm going to hear back from this, but in terms of housing authorities, I'm not going to say there aren't problems with AHA, but ours is pretty well respected, Atlanta's, compared to many others. And if somebody could give them a chunk of money to expand their voucher program, then when Trump et al. Cut the voucher program, we can pick up the slack. Because it is probably the most dollar-efficient way to provide affordable housing. I hate to take it away from my affordable housing developer friends, but it is, instead of spending $100,000 per unit, you could do 3 or 4 units with that money in a voucher system sometimes.
And Shay, I wanted to ask you, non-displacement programs, the importance of keeping people, if they want to stay where they live, or if they want to stay close to work. How is that good for economic development? How could you sell an elected official and saying, this is not just going to be the right thing for this person, but this is going to be a good thing for the economy? How do you sell that?
Carefully. There's actually a lot of work currently being done on this very issue. When there's an equitable hiring environment, when people have access to housing, when people can be stable, what's that impact to the economy? And if you think about the 18 Fortune 500 companies that are here, a lot of them are consumer driven. So we make the argument of when people are stable in their housing, when they have access to good jobs, they're going to spend more with you, company, whether you're big or small. The other thing is when people are stable in their housing, they can come to work as productive members of society when they're not worried about whether or not when they get home, all their stuff's going to be on the curb. And productivity is a big deal when you have 2,000 things on your mind in terms of, is my voucher going to expire? Is my child care subsidy going to go away? How much money am I making? How much money am I not making? Does my child have quality child care, health care, all that kind of stuff? Productivity goes down. So we try to help businesses understand if you let us support and help the folks that are your employees, we can help them be more productive. But turnover and volatility in the market, in any market, is not necessarily a good thing. So the more stable neighborhoods are, the more you can bring in more business, and then the neighborhood grows. But there's a lot of study being done around the economic impact of equity and stability right now. And actually, I will say that the Metro Tranquil is also actually focused on equity and what does it mean, and what does it mean in Metro Atlanta. I know some people are very surprised to hear that, but that is way far ahead from where they've ever been in the past. That they're even using the word equity, and it's not assets minus liabilities equals equity. It's equity for all, and what that means, because I think that people are understanding that there's a business case to be made when everyone is doing well.
I know that there are probably a lot of audience questions, and I want to open that up, but very briefly, I want to ask a new mayor is going to take office in January. He or she comes to you and says, I want you to be my brain trust. Tell me the first thing I need to do. What would all of you tell that new mayor to address the issue of gentrification?
I don't know, I was talking to Chairman Means earlier. I went to the Green Forum last week and they talked about the one big idea, and I don't know that I have one big idea, but the question you asked, Che, just made me think about the fact that we have a large philanthropic community in Atlanta that hasn't really, to my knowledge, focused a lot on housing, that we continually say can actually provide the platform for helping citizens reach their potential in terms of educational outcomes for children, health disparities, jobs, whatever. So I think one thing the mayor could do is use his or her bully pulpit to to encourage the philanthropic community to give to what Dan is talking about, to set up some kind of fund for rental assistance and for housing, period. I think that would put us a long way. And just, I have a mic, just to follow up one thing Dan said and talked, just thinking about sticks and carrots. Is that what it is? Or carrots and sugar or something? I mean, one of the other things we need to do is actually look at code enforcement and making the penalties and the fines so onerous that some of this housing is actually fixed up. I mean, when Dan talked about existing housing, unsubsidized housing, there is that stock here, but some of the stock we're losing, we could probably afford to lose. We really need to look at making that quality standard housing and not having property owners just holding on to it so that they can sell it 5 or 10 years down the line for the most money.
I think I would tell them that the biggest challenge that we have is it's resources, yes, but there are things that we can do. The biggest challenge has been the will. to do it. And once people understand that our industry in Atlanta is development, not, it's code or whatever, but it's development. There's a different conversation that you have to start to have with the development community, and be a little bit more forceful and not as accommodating when a project comes to the table.
So I would say to listen to the recording of this event, listen to what Dan and everybody else has been saying. There's so many great ideas here that have been put forth. I would say that when I think of all of the great ideas that have happened here, that have been put forth here tonight, I get excited, but I also get a little angry because so many of them are not being implemented. I've heard ideas similar to these for years and years and years that aren't happening, and I would remind the mayor and everybody else that, as we all know, a budget is a moral document that says how we feel about each other and how we feel about the city. We give a lot of money through tax breaks and other incentives to Fortune 500 companies to come here and to bring high-paying jobs, and those people taking those high-paying jobs are going to want to live near their jobs and live in the city, and they're going to try to look for housing anywhere they can, in the city, and that, that has an effect on what's happening in the housing market. We devote a lot of money to that. Are we devoting an equal amount of money to preventing displacement, preventing the ill effects of gentrification? How many of these great ideas are getting to the mayor's office? How many of these great ideas are getting to city council? How many of these great ideas are getting to MPUs? What are we doing now that is preventing these things from happening? Are people at MPU meetings voting against things like maybe accessory dwelling units or allowing duplexes and quadruplexes and triplexes and things? Are we voting against our best interests in terms of housing stability? So I would want to say all of those things. How can we help as advocates, as community members?
Running out of ideas because they've been stolen, especially capes. I really like capes. Came from Chicago, where community foundations and other foundations do care about housing, and it makes a huge difference. But another comparison to Chicago, sometimes I think the city of Atlanta thinks, in reference to the state of Georgia, thinks it's the same as Chicago compared to the state of Illinois. Chicago is 3 million people, Atlanta is 450,000 people. The Speaker of the House in Illinois is from the southwest side of Chicago and has been always tight with mayors. We seem to have mayors are put in a position of kind of supplicating to the governor in this state instead of kind of, and I think that's a demographic challenge. I think that's just the math. But I think given that Atlanta proper is such a small part of the state, vis-a-vis the state legislature, the mayor of Atlanta has to develop coalition with other mayors, other county leaders in ways that will address housing issues. Because we can, Stephanie Stuckey-Bunfield's Resilience Initiative, part of it is great work, but we're talking about what the city can do to be resilient when every time I think about the best possible policy, it requires the state to go along with it. We're in a very kind of weak city, strong state place, like many places, but we're also small. So until we form coalitions with Savannah and Augusta and other cities around the state and start being able to lever some legislators, including Republicans, on housing, based on a lot of your arguments, it's going to be very hard because inclusionary zoning, I don't agree that state law prevents inclusionary zoning and Frank Alexander Illinois law doesn't, but the city park council seems to all the time. That's another pet peeve of mine. But I mean the legal counsel. But there are impediments, and even if we did pass inclusionary zoning, there would be legislators the next day that would try to pass a law to preempt it. Even if it's legal now, they would try to make it illegal tomorrow. So unless we gain state power, it's going to be hard to make big moves.
So I look at leadership from the perspective of, and so look at this room. Everyone in here by definition of why we're here, believes in the need for non-displacement and affordability to live where you want to live. My first question to any new leadership of the city is, do you also believe in that? And if you do, whoever you are, you have tools to solve this problem. You have millions of tools to solve the problem. Every municipality has a budget, and every budget can attempt to abate taxes, subsidize finance costs, subsidize acquisition costs. They're innumerable. But my conversation to the next new leadership is, are you fully committed to this? If you are, there are myriad people who can help us solve the problem. Solve one incremental bit of the problem to get to a solution that can be a large coalition, that can be very locally based, that can be.
Like I said, I could ask questions all day, but I want to give folks here a chance to ask. What would be the best? Just shout it out. Is that cool? If we can't hear you, we'll ask you to repeat it.
You repeat the question.
Oh, you repeat first. Sure. You, sir?
I'm curious if there's any relationship between neighborhoods that are currently being gentrified and
The question was, are there any neighborhoods that are currently being threatened with gentrification and redlining?
Like previously redlined. Like, the neighborhoods that are basically overlapped with neighborhoods that were redlined.
Our neighborhoods that were previously redlined at risk of being threatened with gentrification. Thank you. Go ahead and grab it.
I'm actually not going to, well, not redline, but many of the inner city neighborhoods now looking at gentrification were actually targeted for predatory subprime lending and really saw a number of foreclosures in their areas leading to a lot of abandoned, blighted property.
But I would just add, if you went back another 20 years, yes, they were often, there is a lot of overlap with redlining. Traditional redlining, meaning no FHA loans, no conventional loans, and then some people call subprime lending reverse redlining, but it's another form.
Jump back over this side.
Thanks, Alex. So I'm interested in knowing more about the cultural displacement in Atlanta. Atlanta has a very unique identity, particularly related to the thriving Black middle class. And considering that over 50% of households south of I-20 in Atlanta are African American, what do these trend lines mean for those communities? President Immergluck, what can you say to the trends and the Black population being forced out of these communities and have being replaced with other races?
Okay, that was a long question, but the question was dealing with cultural displacement and what are the trends that are happening, especially Atlanta has been historically predominantly Black city, and what would you tell people who are finding their neighborhoods at risk of cultural displacement?
I just want to hear more about the trends that you see in these neighborhoods.
Yeah, I'd start out first by saying we're at 52% African American. That's the latest census. So it's, it will not be a majority African American city for much longer. The trends are pretty clear. I mean, that's unless something changes, but given trends. And yeah, I mean, if you look at Home Park, if you look at the West Side is actually, even English Avenue rents have gone up quite a bit. I don't have English Avenue on here. And that may, in the short run, the thing about gentrification is people think about the people forced out, which I understand. And that's a kind of an immediate visceral concern. I'm worried about those folks too. But the evidence on what really changes what a neighborhood looks like is who moves in. Because it just, the way the data shows it is that the change in the composition of who moves in, and that is changing a lot in a lot of neighborhoods, and I'm starting to look at that with home mortgage data, which gives race and income both. And I think it's a huge concern, particularly to neighborhoods that cultural capital is part of their amenities, is part of what attracts folks to the neighborhood and makes people want to stay. So the problem is if you lose that, you could actually accelerate change. Because people say, the most articulate expression of this problem came from Councilman Dickens, who came to my class, housing policy class, and Andre said, the gentrification thing is about Miss Rose. Miss Rose has lived in this neighborhood for 30 years, and she went to every NPU meeting and every neighborhood meeting, and she knew everybody, and people would bring food, and they'd talk about the old times, and the agenda would be kind of loose. And then, this is the old fourth ward, and then all of a sudden, new folks are showing up. They're very organized. They have agendas. They move very quickly. And Miss Rose feels like she has no more voice. And once she feels like she has no more voice, that's when she's kind of, folks said it early, kind of saying, okay, maybe I'm not going to stay vested in this neighborhood. Right? I mean, it's that kind of almost spiritual commitment to the neighborhood. If they feel othered at their own community meetings, that's a problem. And that's going to accelerate that change. I don't know. I do think economics are part of slowing that down, giving people the means to stay, but I also think it's a community organizing problem.
Do you mind? I just want to say one thing about this cultural displacement. It's something that I was thinking about just last weekend, and I was taking a long walk around the West End. So I went to the West End MARTA station and walked all around with my ThreadATL colleague Matt Barbette, who lives over there, and we were looking at all of the vegan restaurants. So there are a lot of black-owned vegan restaurants, and it becomes obvious that there is a large community in that area that is, I'm guessing, a Black Muslim community that is built up around that area, and how long is that community going to stay there? Are they going to be displaced? How comfortable do they feel? If they end up moving, is it going to be their choice? Do they feel empowered to make a choice to move? To maybe open a restaurant somewhere else? Or they're going to have to move? I mean, there's a big warehouse right beside the West End MARTA station that has been empty for many, many years, that has just been purchased, and it's being turned into offices. It's going to be turned into very nice offices. Those people coming into those offices are going to be white-collar workers who want someplace to go to lunch. Somebody's going to take advantage of that and open up restaurants that are catering to white-collar workers. Is that going to threaten the existing culture that's already there? These are things that should be thought about right now, rather than trying to put a fire out later on or warning the loss of cultural displacement later on.
And so I'm guessing it needs to be a focus on community organizing. That is something that can be addressed, or not something that can be addressed, but I mean, there's nothing stopping the city from maybe looking at the NPU process and suggesting, you should be mindful, not necessarily have to do this, but you should be mindful of this. I mean, maybe educating NPU leaders that they can't get directly in
the other concrete thing that goes to the recent response and the question, the comment, is business gentrification, is commercial gentrification. Because allowing people to figure out ways to maybe form a community land trust for small retail businesses, restaurants, ways to acquire land, ways to, again, maybe seek some property tax relief based on you having been in business for 5 years in the same neighborhood. A lot of New York is kind of leading the way on some of this stuff because it's happening so fast there. One thing I say is the cities that have the biggest problems of housing affordability and gentrification, it's the paradox. They're doing the most, but they also have the biggest challenge, right? I mean, to try to fight gentrification in Brooklyn, you know, they're doing lots of stuff, but the market is so overwhelming. It doesn't mean they're not doing it. It would be a lot worse with what, you know, in the absence of what they're doing. So when we say look to other cities, we can learn from other cities that have suffered this longer and more intensely. But I really think that kind of not talked about as much locally is commercial gentrification, especially for you know, existing small businesses that have been around for a while. I know there's been some press around this in Creative Loafing and other places, but there could be ways to kind of target resources to help those folks stay.
I'm going to put a face on 30310, which is open city. I look around in this room, and I see people talk about people living in open city. We're not concerned about vegan restaurants. We are aware of them. We have real people being pushed out of their homes. She was correct that they use code enforcement, property tax liens, solid waste liens, to put people out of their home. Oh, eminent domain. Those are tools used by the city to get old folks out of their home. We don't care anything about rentals. Oakland City is single family homes. That's what it is. It's mixed in. Now, blight happens because 30310 was foreclosure and all that of the nation. On District 4's watch, allowed to happen. They injected Section 8. They didn't give modification to the people, so they park their cars on the grass. They don't cut the grass, they park their cars on it. So now, you decimate the property value. That only takes about 7 or 8 years for that to happen. So now we got houses that are sitting up, it's been foreclosed on. We have houses that have been sitting there with grass and trees going up through the roof. The city has done nothing about trying to find the absentee landowners who live somewhere else. And now they're starting to strip the houses off, that old asbestos and all sort of stuff. And now, all of a sudden, they're starting to repair the homes. And my whole point is this. We, the people who live there, are not interested. We're not worried about who's coming in. I want to know where did Big Mama go when all this happened. That's what I want to know. Is she in Clayton County somewhere? Carabella, Georgia, where is she? Where does Big Mama go? And in terms of black people, we don't have a legacy. That's the problem. We can't save money because we're spending more money than how to keep our roots. The problem is, we always have to start over here. I can't give my grandchild or my whatever anything. I've already been pushed out of the house I've been living in for years. I want to see no more talk. A lot of people plans. Why don't we do something now? You got T spots, maybe H spots, housing spots, whatever. But get the money. You have money for domes, you got money for filtering, you got money for everything else. You got money for Big Mama and her family to stay where she is. And I guarantee you, if you sit on Big Mama's stoop sometime, you'll learn something.
Do we have any candidates with Chairman Eames running for mayor? Do we have any candidates for office here tonight? LeJuano? Linda Jason Dozier?
Zelda Jackson.
Zelda Jackson?
I have a detailed plan of gentrification on my website also, Jackson Plan.
So, got 5 more weeks as chairman of Wheatley County. What would you recommend as we look at revising the tax code or retention strategy for how to treat the code so that people are not
The short-term strategy is easy. Go ahead.
5 weeks as he's still in office, what are some short-term strategies that the county could do to tweak the tax code?
Yeah. Well, the most immediate thing, which would help low-income homeowners the most, this would help homeowners as opposed to renters, is to raise the homestead exemption significantly. So if you have a house right now that's worth $75,000, you probably don't pay very much tax on it because it's 40%. But if your house is going up to $150,000 and you raise the exemption, ideally we would get an exemption that would grow over time. But if you raise the exemption, it will disproportionately help people with cheaper, with less expensive houses. That would be short term, relatively, right? It turns out that income base requires changes to state law. But by raising the exemption, you still are disproportionate. Means if somebody has a $500,000 house, raising the exemption from 30 to 60 isn't going to change their property tax as much, right? But if somebody has a $100,000 house, it could eliminate their property taxes.
So I've heard some that the suburbanization of poverty is kind of the companion piece to gentrification. But do we have any specific data on where people from Atlanta are going when they're being displaced?
Do we have any specific data on where people from Atlanta are going when they're displaced?
I can say, based on some work I'm doing right now, there are big increases in renting in large parts of the 5 core counties. Particularly Clayton County, which has kind of been written about quite a bit, but also parts of Gwinnett County and parts of Cobb County, as well as South Fulton. So that's where most folks are going.
And so to your point, because people are moving to the 5 outer counties, it's taking the elected officials out there by surprise, and they're not quite sure what to do. So this, with the new mayor coming in, this is a perfect opportunity to engage with those elected officials and say, look, we know how, we're working on trying to solve this and we can help you too, but we all have to engage together and work on it together.
And so, and Chairman Eves, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Sandy Springs is actually looking at introducing or passing an inclusionary zoning law. That's on the books for them to do sometime this year. So evidently, right, but it's still inclusionary. It's still inclusionary, and it will be interesting to see what happens there. Yeah.
So, what would you suggest for first-time home buyer who wants to buy the city of Atlanta? What strategy would you suggest?
I couldn't. I heard what would you suggest for first-time home buyer?
A first-time home buyer who wants to live in the city of Atlanta. What would you suggest they do or look for to not pay $500,000?
What would you suggest? Someone's a first-time home buyer, they want to buy a house in the city of Atlanta. They don't want to pay $500,000 for a house.
Well, actually, this gives me an opportunity to talk about nonprofit housing developers. And some of these neighborhoods, you actually have, there are neighborhoods that have been hard hit by foreclosures. And what some of the nonprofits have done using city funds is to acquire those units and actually rehabilitate them and have them for sale. And because of the neighborhood, so if you want to be an urban pioneer, there actually is housing available in MPUV. And in addition to the housing availability, there is also down payment assistance available through several different programs that would bring the cost of the housing down even more, but you have to be income eligible for both of those things. Well, the Housing Authority, there is actually a group, Metro Fair Housing, that has some money available, also Invest in Atlanta.
a nonprofit housing developer. A market-based nonprofit housing developer. I look all over the city to see where the opportunities are. Man, if you can pull together a couple $1 million and buy better than half of Pittsburgh. Easy. Just so you know. Well, it used to be very good. But the point is that Atlanta is massive. And there are opportunities in a lot of places. And the language is urban pioneer, is that what you said? Yeah, that's exactly it. Which is what Old Fourth Ward was not even 12 years ago, right? Which is what, when I was in college 20-something years ago at Morehouse, and what Midtown was almost. If you want to be a homeowner and you want to grab a piece of this place, there are opportunities to do it. And I think a lot of the tone and tenor of what you're hearing here is, let's build some community. Let's live next to people that we appreciate and care about, and let's invest in our neighborhoods. And I'll do my part to make, like I said, as egalitarian as housing stock as possible. So if you don't want an old house in Oakland City or Pittsburgh, I can try and find you something new here. Hopefully with the help of the municipality over the next few years. Otherwise, we're all here doing the hard work, right?
A lot of people that I've worked with aren't ones that are always speaking and work homeless guys. People who house are getting their home, fixing the bedroom, or having their houses sold out in the middle of the currently the construction in such a way that when you're broken, it's not going to keep you broken. We have shelters that require payment in their needs. My question is, we have 7,000 people that are on the street. We have to shelter the look to say that's going to be for homeless. And how are we going to get people that are on the street in housing? And how do we do that? Because a lot of what I'm hearing about the top line, and I understand that economics is always good for it. But I want to know how we're going to get people that are on the street, because that's actually going to be the same economy. And allow people with money to get back to work.
You know, one of the things that hasn't been brought up, I'm sorry, Thomas is better at that question. I'm sorry.
I hope I do it justice. People who've been displaced and ended up out on the street, how can we get them to help?
LeJuano said that we had 5 times we talked about the laws and how they weren't actually going to the county.
Okay. We have an estimated 7,000. How can we get them back in the house?
Well, keep in mind, 7,000 is a snapshot. So when you have 7,000 at one point in time, that means you have a lot more than that going through homelessness. And really that's what matters. Going back to the questions about housing instability and what it does to kids' education and what it does to people's platform and the ability to get a job and the ability to get an apartment. One of the biggest problems is evictions. If you have an eviction, you really have a constrained set of places you can rent. You're really kind of pushed into what folks call the hardest to house market, where very few landlords will help you, and the ones that will rent to you are often slumlords, right, and predatory. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned is we need a much more aggressive, which goes to Chairman Eaves' question. The other thing, the county does fund eviction defense in small dollars. It needs to multiply that by 10. We have one of the highest eviction rates of any city in the country. Basically, 20% of renter households are having an eviction filed on them a year. It's about 7% in Chicago. Baltimore, which has a really high rate, is about 15%. So we're one of the easiest to evict places. One is give people lawyers, because we have a completely asymmetrical system where landlords always have lawyers and tenants never have lawyers. It also helps get the slums, the slumlords, to fix up their buildings, because people are being evicted when they complain about the quality of the housing and file a complaint. But then the next thing, which requires also money, all these things require requires some money, but not necessarily huge amounts of money. But also policy is to change eviction laws, and that goes back to the state. That's state law. Georgia is one of the easiest places to evict in the country, and as long as it is, renters on the kind of bottom end of the housing market are going to be very insecure going into homelessness free.
So if I could just maybe ask somebody from the Housing Justice League to stand up and give a phone number. You all are working on tenant protection, so give a phone number. And anybody who's interested can follow up with you, or email address, or website, or something.
Hi, so I'm Allison. I'm here from Housing Justice League. The contact information is 404-521-9070. HousingJusticeLeague.org. You can go to our website. You can find information there. And we're also doing a project called a Beltline project. It's called Beltline for All. It's a research project. Tomorrow we'll be hosting our first community conversation about it.
My name is Tanya. I manage a nonprofit that does homebuyer education and helps people get down payment assistance. Most of my clients are below 80% AMI. I love what I do. I get very excited that I can see buyers become homeowners affordably. But my frustration with that at the same time is that after the 5 years and the 10 years that assistance, they're required to keep the home, when they sell their house, it goes back to market rate. And so it's not, in my opinion, a very good long-term solution. Is there anyone on the panel that is aware of any development project or any city project where there's going to be longer-term solutions and not just affordable units available for 10 years and then become market rate? Because that's my frustration. I would like to see us not have this problem 10 years from now.
Is permanent affordability a possibility? Or is that kind of basically summing it up? Would you say? Because they always expire after 5 years.
So, two things. There is an organization in Atlanta called the Atlanta Community Land Trust. And the organization is changing its name, and I can't remember now what it's changing its name to. But anyway, a community land trust, the concept is that the organization owns the land for permanent affordability, and in terms of home ownership, sells the house, and the homeowner actually pays the community land trust a certain amount of money each month for leasing the land upon which the home is built. And then at the time the homeowner wants to sell the house, again, the land trust still owns the land, and there's a shared equity formula so that all of the house appreciation does not go just to the homeowner, but actually some of it stays in the unit. The other thing I mentioned, City for All, the part of that platform, in addition to raising $250 million to capitalize a fund for affordable housing development, one of the things we're also promoting is permanent affordability and looking to the land trust for something similar for permanent affordability.
Land trusts are great. They haven't been very successful in Atlanta, and I think they're a great idea. But it's simpler than that. Many cities, I don't know if most, are now using deed restrictive covenants where basically when you sell, you get part of the appreciation, but not all of it. And the 50% or whatever goes back to the city that they can use to subsidize the next buyer, and the next buyer has to be is income restricted. So instead of seeing what we saw in Willoughby's excellent article on the Beltline about one of the Reynoldstown Law properties being sold to a doctor, that unit would have to go to somebody who's income qualified, and the very large profit that that seller made would, a good chunk of it, maybe most of it, would have to go back to the housing fund of the city to subsidize the next buyer. That's kind of state of the art. And I don't know what Invested Land is doing with its programs right now, but it ought to be doing that.
A very practical example, 16 years ago, Boston Area Housing Authority, for deconstruction, this is 2000, 2001, was a similar structure where an income verified low-income housing acquirer of a unit would pay a subsidized rate for their, let's say it's a condo, they would pay $100 a square foot, which of course was very cheap. If they chose to sell within the first 30 or 40 years, they got some percentage appreciation of 4%, 5% of the sale price, and that was it could not sell for more than that on an annual basis. And then another income-restricted person would have to purchase it, and the same deed restriction would go on for that unit. There are, as I mentioned before, there's so many tools that are already out there, that already exist, that for whatever reasons, when we decide to choose leadership, we don't ask them if they're committed to using these tools.
And when we decide, oh my gosh, I should have spilled water on myself, which is appropriate because it's apparently flooding outside. So when we decide to choose leadership, it has a lot to do with a lot of stuff that we're talking about, right? And I also want to talk about something that can be difficult to even approach is the ways that we, as Atlanta residents in Atlanta neighborhoods, can undo some of these great ideas that have been brought forth. I mean, there's an incredible eviction crisis that's happening in Atlanta, and it's absolutely a crisis. And we can catch some of those people with some sort of preventative measure, but a lot of those people are going to end up homeless. There's an effort right now that is going to be trying to put smaller facilities for housing homeless people throughout the city rather than centrally located larger facilities. Our neighborhood's going to oppose that. Our neighborhood's going to rise up against that and say, no, we don't want homeless people housed near my house. It's going to bring my home values down. We've got a rezoning effort that is going to potentially bring the possibility for multifamily housing in places that have never had multifamily housing in 100 years. Our neighborhood's going to rise up against that and say, vote no on that. I think that it's important for us to think about what can we do and how can we help our neighbors, help everybody understand the goodness of implementing these strategies that help people who are vulnerable.
So I heard multiple times folks talk about the need for community organizing, the need for communities to be educated and empowered to not only resist changes they don't want, but to stand up and be involved in the development process. So I'm just wondering, I guess it's frustration when you're part of community organizing, support community organizing, when you don't support from the bigger nonprofits, you don't support the city level of the times or residents actually standing up, there's not necessarily everyone there supporting it, but everyone wants to talk about it. Right? So I'm just wondering if you all have suggestions on how elected officials, nonprofits, just regular residents in Atlanta can begin to support the community organizing that's going to have support for us to say the Black Atlanta.
What are ways to get elected officials, nonprofits, foundations to support the community organizing that is trying to preserve neighborhoods and Black Atlanta have?
This is a very small suggestion, but I understand that each of the NPUs actually has a budget, actually gets some money from the city of Atlanta. So, and since the NPU is a system that's already set up in Atlanta, that might be one avenue to try and go to a specific NPU to ask what their budget looks like for what they would apply to the city for, and whether they would have any interest in supporting a community organizing effort, because I know that several NPUs are very concerned about displacement and neighborhood retention. So that's one suggestion.
Any others?
I think it goes back to Kate's earlier comment. Cities that I've been involved with very strong, influential community organizers have foundations that support that. They may not be local, but they often are. There's usually a base of foundations that are local. There also are some national funders that seem to shy away from Atlanta. And I think they partly shy away from Atlanta funding community organizing because they don't see the local foundations funding it. They want to be partners with local foundations. So I think that's a big part of it, not to crack.
We have time for one more question.
How much money would you need in the voucher program in order to pay the real debt for the house?
How much money would you need in the
I'm
voucher?
good at math, but I don't know.
The question was, how much money would you need in a voucher program to put a dent in the affordable housing?
Can I do this without, okay, so let's say you want to put a family in a house that rents for $1,000 and they have, income that really, for them to spend no more than 30% of their income allows them to spend $500. So you're talking about $500 a month per unit. So you can kind of, the subsidy, so you can basically talk about $6,000 a year. You can capitalize that. You might be talking about $40,000 a unit, maybe less, given low interest rates. So you can do a lot compared to building new, which could cost $200,000 a unit or $150,000. So I'd use the $30,000 to $40,000 kind of permanent cost. Right. Well, I don't know what the. That's a tough one. I'd have to take. Again, if I figure 15%, if you're just talking about serving people who are below $20,000 a year, people who would already qualify for vouchers, you're talking about at least quadrupling the number of folks. So you're talking about a lot of money to serve everybody. But if we just serve double the number of people, that would be a huge impact, right? So, I think you are talking about tens of millions of dollars a year to make a big impact. But there are cities that are spending that on Minneapolis spends $10 or $15 million a year on low-income housing routinely. Well, it depends how much. If you want to solve the problem, then you're talking at least kind of 75 to 100 million a year. But you're not going to solve the problem. We're going to make a big dent in it.
Well, we're out of time. Thank you very much for coming out. Melanie, do you want to say anything else?
Y'all have noticed. So just say we went ahead a little bit early, so that you'll have direct questions from the panelists over each other, and then there's a lot of folks in the room who are also experts. If we're going to have both a Facebook Live, so for people who may get here tonight, people streaming, we're going to have that video. I'm going to follow up with all the panelists and have them, additional information and learning we'll bring here today, so stats and stuff like that. We'll have it in a blog post that'll write over the next couple days. We have your information, we'll signed in, we'll sign up online, we can make sure that you get email to you, so you'll have it available. So when we provided the phone number for City Housing Justice League, we'll get that from you as well, so we can make sure people get it if that's something that they need. So I just say, this is a big issue. There's obviously a lot of really good ideas floating around, not necessarily because you said not really solve it, but to do something about it. So I would say start asking candidates where they stand on this. Every candidate, there's either a group tonight, I'm going to escape right now, but as you start, I see clear thought. So if you're in the Watkins district, in District 5. Yeah, for City Council. I'm LeJuano, and maybe ask her some questions about other candidates in the room, or at other places when you're going to candidate forums, you're trying to decide who you're going to go with here. Ask them questions about this. Arm yourself with stats, arm yourself with stories from your neighborhood. See, what is it they plan to do? This issue isn't going to go away in the next couple months. It's going to be there the rest of the year as people start moving into office. So thank you guys for coming out tonight. Please be safe because it looks a little intense outside. Arm yourself with an umbrella.